Hey, Shiva. Shiva, we were just talking about the latest Microsoft vulnerability. So the workarounds there, and what the team's doing. Same with ConnectWise, same data. Okay. Can I share something real quick out there, Shiva, for everybody? If I can find it real quick. Good thing, for those of you that have either owner-led sales or your sales team, I like this. Just bear with me. Give me 30 more seconds, Shiv. I don't want to hold things up. Is it this? Yes. Okay. I'm going to drag this into chat. So SANS, although they don't give you like really nice stuff, but why isn't I'm trying to drag something in the chat? Is that the right way to do it? It's not doing it. All right, I'll figure it out, guys. I'll put a URL in there. Shiva, let me not hold up things anymore at 5 after. So welcome everybody to the partner call. Andrew Morgan, I help the CyberCNS team with go-to-market. And as always, I'm joined with CTO and co-founder Shiva Shankar and some of the team here. If this is your first time, welcome. A lot of repeat customers and visitors. So welcome back. If you've seen it before, just quick agenda. I'm going to hand the controls over to Shiva momentarily. He's going to give us an update. This week's going to be focusing on the migration. I'm sure there's going to be some Q&A on that. I'll moderate the Q&A in the background, and then we'll just open up for general Q&A as well. Shiva, anything else that you want me to kind of put in the preamble here before I hand it over to you? I think you're on mute. At least it looks like you're on mute.
No, I said it's perfect. I'll just basically share my screen.
Okay, perfect.
I somehow don't seem to have the permissions. Just give me a second. I will.
Maybe you got the latest Microsoft. You've been clicking on Microsoft attachments, show?
No.
Well, while you're doing that, getting things worked out, I think, yeah, here it is. So this, I'll put the Dropbox URL in chat for everybody. So this is a great PDF that you could, if you got people on your team that can convert it back to like a PowerPoint. And very risky. This one's legit, Craig. I can vouch for it. It takes you to Johannes at SANS Dropbox, and they did a really nice job. That, like, what would you tell the CEO about this particular vulnerability and why it's concerning? The part that SANS and I think a lot of technologists always leave off is what's the business impact, right, to the CEO. Right? How is it going to impact them making money if people click on it? How is it going to impact their ability to manage cash flow if they get encrypted and have to start invoking, breach counsel and on and on and on, and reputational potential damages. So, but you could use it as a great call to action from if you have a sales team or owner-led sales model of, getting back in front of some prospects and clients. Would that resonate with anybody real quick? Just love your feedback while Shiva's getting things ready here. Let me know your thoughts. And do you guys use things like that to get in front of clients and prospects? Because you need a reason to reach out. Don't all respond at once in chat. All right, Shiva, I'll hand it over to you.
Perfect. Thanks, Andrew.
Sure.
Okay, so very quickly on migration status, we started migration with 60 partners. We are now basically good to go. We're just holding the switchover because we are waiting on one approval from AWS on the quota. for auto-scaling. This is something that we didn't realize was happening when we migrated the 60 partners. One of the things that we started seeing was basically throttling at AWS in terms of the auto-scaling groups. So we essentially kind of have increased the quotas, and then those quota approvals have taken almost like 6 days for us to get it. And we've been told that in the next few hours you'll get it. So you will actually see mails on your migration basically, which will happen. I've received mails from a number of you in terms of who want to be on the front of the list, and I've put all of you on the front of the list, and all your systems already are basically ready to be migrated. So you will see shortly a message which will essentially say that your migration has started. Okay. What have we done? Basically, we earlier had basically one server for each one of you, and we basically kind of put all these 900 servers. We basically brought it down to an auto-scaling architecture, where basically when you access the system, we spin up a system for you. We basically spin up like a container in that sense, and then basically dedicate that container to you. And that is essentially how we are optimizing the cloud infrastructure. But in addition to optimizing, we are also basically kind of keeping the data plane secure. Plus, we are also basically being able to basically harness the fact that you probably, as you scale in the number of agents, we will essentially be scaling the system along with you without having to basically kind of, because earlier in the system, you basically had only one system that was dedicated to you. Now you have an entire cloud that basically is available for you to scale as you move forward. So in terms of basically what we've done is we've increased the reliability by 2x. We've increased your availability by 2x. And basically, as I said, by 4th, you will all be migrated. So essentially, just wanted to kind of put this out there saying that we are working essentially to migrate all the instances there to basically allow for this kind of reliability and availability. And that's basically our primary goal. Again, I explained this last time. I just wanted to make sure that everybody is very clear about how it is working. We are basically mapping each of you to essentially one of these portals, which is portal USEs to S2. And basically, we have a central mapping database. Your agents basically are coming to the central database, figuring out where they have to go to. Then they are going there. And when you log in also, the same thing. So essentially, this is essentially the mapping that you have to do. And please whitelist these URLs. We basically also basically put it in the documentation. I'll send the documentation link on this thing. So please whitelist these URLs, because once you migrate it, then if you don't whitelist these URLs, then you will not be able to access the portal. So the architecture basically, I just wanted to kind of give an inside view of how we've architected the whole thing. So we have basically the Amazon CloudFront along with a WAF, and basically we also have an Amazon firewall configured here. So basically all the three. So this follows the principle of having a multi-layer defense. It's not just about saying that I have it secure, but basically we have followed the principles of multi-layer defense. So we have a firewall basically guarding the whole thing. In front of it, we have a WAF, and then basically we have the backend services. Basically, they are split between two pieces, right? One is essentially Lambda. So Amazon Lambda allows you to basically run containers basically on an on-demand basis. Of course, they basically charge on a per second basis. So for the number of seconds it's utilized, it is basically charged for. And in the backend, basically, we have DynamoDB, which is being used as basically for certain NoSQL data. And then we have Redis for the entire piece. And of course, basically, we have all the APIs which are getting routed and going into like an OpenSearch cluster, which we basically have in the backend. Again, this OpenSearch cluster is basically configured as a multi-tenant database. So it is basically in the principle of no data sharing. So even as CyberCNS, we will not be able to, we will not be in a position to pull data across all of you, because the way that we work is that we basically dedicate one tenant inside this OpenSearch cluster to you, and all the indexes that are created inside this tenant. And basically, we do not use the admin access. We essentially use only access basically, and whenever a request comes into this Lambda, it basically kind of has a secure store. It basically figures out from the secure store corresponding to your instance what is basically the credentials and the tenant ID for OpenSearch, and then it basically accesses it via OpenSearch. So even if you do not, if the tenant ID does not come through, it will not be able to basically get at the data. So these are all kind of the safeguards that we essentially put in order to basically prevent this. All of these instances that you're seeing are basically in a virtual private cloud, which basically means that it's an internal network and it's isolated from the internet. So no inbound access is allowed to any of these machines. So you cannot basically get to any of these. And first in Lambda, since we're running this in Lambda, you basically don't have a machine which is running. It's basically somewhere, it is basically just a pool of servers that's running somewhere, and you don't have a static IP onto it. So you cannot get to it. So these are all the reason I'm talking. And again, we have notification services, third-party integration services also running as basically containers within Lambda. The reason I'm putting this together is because a lot of you are security experts, right? And then we see a lot of common people basically come in and talk on various forums saying that this product is not secure, this product is basically not this thing. My request is, what we are doing is basically being very open about it, very open about the architecture. A lot of people basically have told me in the past that this is your secret sauce, don't expose it to anyone. But I believe that when I'm talking to all the partners, we are basically part of a family, and we should basically be able to share all of this data, because there is nothing proprietary. This is, I'm using Amazon services, this is what we are doing. And as people who have helped build this product, you should be able to evaluate it and say, because when you are using it inside your system, you should be able to say that I confidently have seen the architecture, I know that this is what exists. And we are happy for any of you, if you want to basically come in and actually have a look at how we've deployed it, audit it, or do any of those pieces, we welcome you to come and do it, right? So we follow, again, when you look at all of this Lambda and all of these pieces, the deployment for it is entirely basically hands-free. That is, we make a commit, we basically put it into a staging environment, we test it, and then we basically move a label in JIT, and that's how we basically moves to the Lambda. So there is no physical access that even the engineers have to the production environments that we've created over here. So just wanted to kind of establish this, because as we migrate to the new architecture, we will get a lot of, we know that we'll get a lot of questions on security and how you're keeping it secure. I want to basically come up in front, show this architecture, get your feedback in terms of or any concerns that you may have, and basically say, yeah, this is what you're moving to, this is how we have secured it, this is what we've done. If there is anything basically that we're missing, let us know. Again, when Amazon CloudFront, we've configured it only for TLS 1.2. Then we saw that few people were not able to connect. We will keep it open for TLS 1.1 based connections for a very short while, and after that we'll bind it to TLS 1.2 and above. So that's essentially the stand that we're taking. Again, authentication services, we right now have Keycloak, which basically is in there connected to Postgres, which again is on one of the newest platforms, which is Aurora Serverless DB. So essentially it connects to that and basically maintains the connectivity. And again, that is auto scaling. It can scale to millions of users with no problems. And so that's how we basically chosen everything, so that it can scale as you scale your businesses going forward. So just one part, which is basically your agents. So your agents basically are coming through what is called Kinesis streams. And if you look at the equivalent parlance, it's like the event hub, which is there in Azure. Or if you basically look at on-prem, you basically whatever is Kafka, it basically uses that streams. And those streams are basically then pushed into OpenSearch clusters. So that's how essentially the data flows between this thing. So the way that the agent communicates with the Kinesis streams is, once it connects to the configuration service, it securely provided a key. That key basically pushes data into Kinesis stream. Again, that key does not have access to any of the services over here. It has access only to basically push the data into the Kinesis stream. So beyond that, it has no access to this thing. And again, these keys vary across every single partner that is out there. Okay. So what we are doing is that we're kind of putting in certain key things right now as we basically plan for the next 30 days. I'll show you what we're doing to simplify the experience further. and move to more report cards and what to fix. These two are the paradigms which we are basically moving to. Now that the migration is out of the way, we will start basically getting into our old mode of basically delivering more features, and that's what we're doing. We are basically creating a wizard, which basically is talking about which essentially says how we can simplify the entire process of securing any company that you have with 16 steps. So that basically is a new wizard that we will be trialing out with you folks next week. And that essentially will kind of take care of some of the things which we are commonly talking about. So like in the 16 steps, basically, it will analyze all your systems to essentially say, do you have NTLM or basically any of these vulnerabilities out there? Do you have NetBIOS, which is basically insecure? So that kind of looking at those different systems, but taking a 16-step approach so that you can just go through a click, click, click process to essentially say, okay, did this, and made it secure. We want to basically kind of finish up some of the integrations that we have basically was started in the past, but basically we kind of stopped. So with password managers, with certain EDR, MDR providers, we're actually working with a company called Blue Shift. Andrew was kind enough to basically talk to us about like integrating with certain training providers. So how can we train people from within this platform so that we can essentially kind of allow them to essentially perform certain actions and why they should perform those actions. So how do we essentially integrate that as part of this? And of course, for the patching, one of the things we have provided third-party patching, you can do it yourself. But basically, if you want to essentially give it to somebody else, we are trying to find to see if somebody can take providing the ability to patch and basically if they are experts at that, can they provide this? And we're looking at it from somebody who's the MSP community who's done this itself. And we, last but not the least, we are basically migrating our entire support infrastructure to the US so that it can be completely US centric. And we will be doing this over the next 30 to 45 days. So the next one is basically we're kind of moving over to some very simplistic views. So these are some of the samples that are being provided to us. So this essentially will be how going forward your interfaces will look like. So we want to essentially kind of break it down into different categories, like how are your firewalls doing? How is your like configuration on your endpoints doing? What is basically, how is your access control? How are you doing on malware protection? How are you doing on patch management? And what are the open items under each one of them? So this is essentially going to be the primary dashboard from where you can navigate into all of the other pieces versus the very asset-centric view that we are having right now. So this is essentially how these basically these views are going to be changing. And then we're going to have a complete report on CISA has actually released a complete list of vulnerabilities that are being exploited actively in the wild, right? So a report which basically we were asked to basically create a report which essentially says which of those CISA vulnerabilities are actually you vulnerable to, so that you, because we get a lot of vulnerabilities, like you basically have like 100,000, 200,000 vulnerabilities, and you will get those lists and you can keep remediating them. But what's more critical is basically getting those which are exploited in the wild and basically mitigating them as quickly as possible. So we are basically building that report, which we basically going to be releasing early next week. This is basically one of the new interfaces. So basically for CIS, for example, V8, you're going to basically see this kind of user interface where you can essentially see the category, you can see the subcategory. It's going to be cleaned up and put into the new UI, but this is what it is. What's the description? And then what is your compliance from IG1, IG2 perspective? And basically what is the, whether it's green, yellow, or red, which basically indicates how compliant or non-compliant you are against that particular thing, right? And then once you basically click on that green or red, it essentially says what is the mitigation. So how can you basically fix this? And then basically whether you want to use an RMM or you want to basically download a script to basically mitigate this. So this is something that we are essentially working on. It will come with the new interface and the new look and feel, but essentially this is the data behind it. So the entire, all of the compliances will basically move into this particular direction where we'll essentially be showing what are the compliances, categories, subcategories, and then basically the different groups under it, what is your compliance, and then you click on it, and then you essentially get what is the mitigation and basically how you can mitigate it using the existing system. So here it is, the aim is to make it more actionable in terms of being able to provide you with an actual script which can basically fix it on any of the machines, rather than just saying that you're compliant or non-compliant. But the actual action of basically performing it will basically be with your existing RMMs, etc., and you're not going to get into that space. So the action of basically changing anything on the system, we will basically keep a very read-only feature. The only thing which we are doing right now is to basically create a separate agent which has patching enabled. So apart from that, we will not basically have any write access to the system, and we will keep it that way for the current time. So that basically was the update that I wanted to share very quickly.
Okay, Shiva. Don't see any comments or questions yet. What I would say is that I love the IG1 report you just showed. For those that are CIS zealots like me, I could foresee really a strong go-to-market around being able to talk to customers about the top 5 attacks from something called the community defense model. And I'm happy to put that in there, that they look at, they being CIS looks at all of the data from the Verizon data breach report, which is, 70,000 attacks over the course of a year, give or take, and then all the CrowdStrike's data, and then all the MS ISACs, because they house the MS ISAC at CIS. So what's really interesting is they have this metadata of what are the top 5 attacks, and then they look at MITRE and they say, okay, if you had these attacks within MITRE, and you had these controls in place for IG1, how many of those attacks would you have prevented of the top 5, like malware, ransomware? And interestingly, like IG1, it's 78, 77, 78%. When you get into all controls, which again, most companies aren't going to do, goes into the 90 percentile. But being able to talk to a business owner about being able to, prevent, a huge number of the top attacks and what that means to them from a cash flow perspective and risk perspective and reputation perspective, I think is pretty cool. So that's what I took away from that. I'm pretty excited. Anybody else feel the same way about that? That is following CIS?
Just wanted to cover a couple of other things also, Andrew, that my team just pointed out. Like, we made some changes to the existing interface also to basically kind of take in some of the comments that have come in. One is basically, previously, if you looked at it, the data was basically spread all over the page, and it was basically kind of, you had to scroll a lot to get to this data. So right now, we basically have 2 sections. Basically, one is an asset security and compliance overview, in which we have basically your security report card, compliance report card, all of the report cards basically comes in over here in the asset. And then it basically shows up all the scores and all of those pieces. And the second piece is basically an asset inventory overview. So this is where you basically get all your installed programs, your updates, your firewall policies, all of that stuff. So we've kind of split it into those 2 sections, where you can essentially see the differentiation between these 2 sections. And again, because you have all these icons on the right hand side, so which load only when you demand they be loaded. So basically the time to load this particular page basically has reduced. And so basically it will also help in kind of, if you are looking for certain things specifically, then you don't wait for the entire thing to be loaded up there. So that's another change that's been made. Apart from this, we have a whole bunch of fixes that have been rolled out. So there were quite a few agent performance issues that we resolved. Lightweight agent, there was certain cases where there was high memory and CPU consumption that was resolved. Then report builder, we had the asset name to the asset user section, which was requested. There is a manufacturer field in all the compliance reports. In all asset users report, we've added a set of fields which were basically asked by a lot of people. And then we've added a share permission report, which was again asked in one of the calls earlier. And then we added some standard reports, which is basically AD groups, PowerPoint, an asset vulnerability Excel, missing patches Excel, Active Directory OUs doc, and AD GPOs doc, and password policy Excel spreadsheet. So please have a look at these reports and let us know if anything is missing. And last but not the least, like we have the sub-compliance CSV report. They also wanted the asset name, IP, OS version. All of those also have been added. So basically a more comprehensive compliance CSV report for downloads.
Very cool. All right, let me see the new layout. So Shiva, the question: when will when will we get to see the new layout?
So once the 4th June release, basically we finish the migration. As part of that, the new layout will be deployed now.
So June 4th is the target?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, Chris, I assume we'll be able to export all the data to Excel.
Yes. Yes.
Yes. Okay. What's that? Yeah, agreed, Dennis. Very cool. Okay, we're caught up again here. Anyone have questions? Anyone want to come on and ask anything? Very quiet group today. Okay, so Simon says, great job, Shiva. I agree. I'm just wondering if there are future plans to develop the external scanning engine. I am keen to drop Tenable completely as soon as possible.
We actually have already developed the external scanning engine. It was not done by us. We gave it to a bunch of college students in Singapore, and they basically kind of developed a very good external scanning engine. So it's in final testing. We will basically be deploying it. As I said, it's going to be a separate piece, which is called externalscan.mycybercns.com. It will basically be released next week for sure, because they have given me we've done some tests. It looks pretty good for us. So basically, I think it does both a lot of the OWASP top 10, plus it basically identifies any vulnerabilities on databases. It identifies WordPress vulnerabilities, any Joomla vulnerabilities. So these are essentially the things that are being done by that team. So we'll basically very shortly be deploying it live.
Very cool. Sean says, any timeline on the ticketing ConnectWise upgrades?
That already, as I said, those are all basically pending just this June 4th upgrade. Once we do that, we will basically be releasing it. The reason for that is that we are also adding configurations. So as part of the new upgrade, you can actually basically get configurations updated in your ConnectWise system. We're starting with ConnectWise, we'll do it for the others. And basically the question that keeps coming up is, if you're doing configurations, how will you basically identify existing configurations? We are doing it by a combination of IP, MAC, hostname. These three, if we find any configuration over there, we are adding custom fields to the configuration. The fields are basically what is the vulnerability count, what is the security card values, and basically the compliance report card values. These are the three pieces that we are adding to configurations.
I missed one. Let me go back here. Paul says, is there a check or one coming that will show IE 11 if IE 11 is still enabled on Windows devices? Sure.
Yes.
Bear with me. Will the new release be, will the new release will there be a best practice for deploying a probe or lightweight agent? Let's ask it that way.
So it's actually a very good question. The whole point is that in case see, there are two pieces, right? In case you're in an environment where you believe that SMB lateral movement is going to be a problem and you have a EDR deployed, my suggestion is for all the endpoints, please deploy a lightweight agent. And wherever the systems that cannot be captured by a lightweight agent, which could be like network devices, routers, etc., for that you will have to deploy a probe.
Okay. Jordan, is there a way, or is it on the roadmap to be able to generate specific alerts off of the CISOs? That's what, sorry, Jordan, you might have missed it. That's what Shiva was saying. We are integrating with that. Question to you on that, Shiva, is it's very interesting. I spoke to a contact at CISA, the way that, I don't know if you ever looked at that catalog, but a CISA will make an announcement, if you're on their mailing list, hey, they released, 24 new exploited vulnerabilities. If you take a look, 22 of them are from 2017, 2018. So I asked them about that. And basically, because they had to start somewhere, they're working their way back, because this is about anybody that has the federal organizations. This was the original mandate of this. If you're a federal organization, you have up into a given date. That's what the date is for a federal organization to mitigate that vulnerability. So frighteningly, they could have a 2018 vulnerability that they're giving deadlines to the organizations to get that done. So all I'm just wondering, Shiva, is will there be an easy way to filter out noise, like, the way in which CISA is releasing those vulnerabilities?
No, it's no filtering of noise, honestly. If the vulnerability exists, we basically are going to find it and basically say you're vulnerable to it, right? So our job is to basically reduce any false positives or noise that comes from basically saying that if it's not a vulnerability, then don't show the vulnerability. But if it is there, we will definitely be showing it up there and basically making sure that it gets patched.
Okay. Does that help, Jordan? But yes, that is the catalog that we're using to do that report. And what's the ETA on that, by the way, Shiva?
That's in the next week's release, right?
Next week, sure. Yeah, no worries, Jordan. You just don't get any dessert. So, all right. Other questions and or thoughts?
So Dennis, I have, I guess, a suggestion I was thinking about. I've been going through, we've been going through, and so taking some of the Excel reports and massaging them into custom reports. I mean, an example was, creating a report that for each user shows, here are the OUs that the user is a member of, here are the groups that the user is a member of, and here are the file shares that that user has access to. But I was thinking about maybe some people who, because I have my ideas about how reports should look, but I'm sure other people have different ideas. Maybe some people want to volunteer for a group to get together and sort of brainstorm reports and say, what kind of report could we create? What should it look like? Just on the theory that more brains are better than one. I don't know if people would be interested in maybe creating kind of a working group to work with some of the developers on different reports and saying, here's how, just an idea of people getting together and sort of collaborating on creating some reports. People would be interested in doing something like that.
Let's ask the group if just why or not, great idea. What I'd love to do with that, Dennis, concomitantly, maybe we can leave a part of it, but is packaging and pricing, because I still think that's a big piece, and I'd love everybody's thoughts, just a why, yes or no, on packaging and pricing and go to market. I still feel, based on the questions I get every single day, we have this large continuum of how MSPs do it. We have MSPs that are using it as just a sales tool, a FUD, and I'm air quoting here, guys. Don't take this in the wrong way. A FUD tool, right? Here's all your awful AD hygiene. Here's all your awful CDEs. Your MSP currently is horrible, yada, yada, yada. We put it in our proposal, but we don't charge a dime for that. But then you have other MSPs that, like a Carl Bickmore, that won't do a security assessment on a prospect for under $5,000. So there's a large degree of how you are collectively going to market with this. And then if you know, what I find by and large is most MSPs don't talk to their customers about a vulnerability management policy. So it's really hard to have packaging and pricing if you haven't talked to them about do you guys care? Do you care about, like what Shiv is saying? Do you care about vulnerabilities? And you're gonna have to put this in layman's terms for them, right? Vulnerabilities being exploited in the wild, CVEs that are 9 or higher, that it's impacting, you know, have you done some kind of BIA with them so that you understand what their critical applications are in their business, that if they go down, it costs the company $50,000 a day because they can't work. So I'm sorry for going on a rant here, but that's what I think is I'm hearing every day in emails I get. So I'm just looking at sorry. So it looks like you guys would like to do that. So Dennis, you open to doing kind of both of those things, concomitantly, just having those discussions?
Yeah, I think there could be opportunities in terms of partner collaboration. There could be opportunities for multiple, I'll call them, for lack of a better term, working groups. And part of what I may think of is, I'm sure that the dev team has received, probably multiple requests from different people for similar reports. But like one says, I want it to look this way. And others says, I'd like to look this way. So it's probably hard for them to decide, what actually is the best way to present this report. And I don't think any one person necessarily has the answer to that. I think if you get people together, to say, yeah, if we did it this way, it would be more useful, it would be easier to read. I just think, in my experience, is that kind of collaboration kind of ends up with a better product than if 5 or 6 or 10 people individually say, this is what I'd like this report to look like. I think it would be easier for the dev team to have that kind of input too.
Yeah, I think it's a phenomenal idea. It's and I think that's what I agree with you, Dennis. Everybody's saying saying there as well. So yeah, I think that's fantastic. All right. Chris, I liked yours, by the way, too. Chris Sears. Chris made a comment in there. This product's going to become much more important to all your customers over the next year. And you nailed it. It's insurance. We're seeing, Chris and I were on an incident handling call yesterday. By and large, Chris, right, that seems to be the number one driver of controls, which we kind of thought and saw, right, coming along the way, was that you're going to need regulation's nice, but one of the biggest lobbying groups in the country that doesn't like to lose money is going to be a much bigger stick than anything else. Would you agree?
Yeah, and there was a video put out a few weeks back by, I don't know his last name, Joe, the cyber insurance guy, essentially posts in, I think, Slack and Discord, and he's certainly on Reddit. But he said he's seen exclusions now that if a breach is due to a vulnerability that had a patch that's existed for 14 days or more and you didn't apply it, you won't have coverage. It's going to be an exclusion within policies. Now, we don't know how broadly that's going to be adopted or how quickly, but things like that are coming. So just patching via, your RMM and not truly scanning for those things slipping through the cracks isn't going to be acceptable, even for the small customers anymore, right? They could get burned by an exclusion like that pretty badly.
Chris, we got it. We based on our cyber call statistics, we first got to get MSPs asking about their customers having cyber insurance in the first place.
Right. Yeah.
Sorry if you guys are joking around, but we found that over 70% of MSPs year over year, this is the fourth time we've done the survey, don't know holistically if their clients on the margin, all their clients have or don't have a cyber policy and what coverage it is. So you in essence are taking on that liability indirectly if you don't know. So Adam, talk to us about that in the UK. What happens there if they don't have it? Is it, just they're self-insuring in essence?
No, I think it's a combination of ignorance, denial that they're ever going to be hit by a cyber attack, and cost, obviously, of getting insurance, which is increasing. The premiums are increasing, of course. I think a lot of small businesses believe that their regular business insurance covers them, which that might have been the case a few years ago, but most insurers have taken out any type of cover for cyber attacks now from general insurance. So obviously pushing it down the specific cyber insurance route. So yeah, it's an education piece. I think in the UK, we're probably a couple of years behind the US in terms of awareness. So yeah, I mean it's a regular conversation I have with my clients and prospects, but it largely falls on deaf ears still, unfortunately.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, as we know, the best way to get budget is have a breach. So you can use that line with them.
Well, Andrew, we're seeing some things with some clients where in certain sectors where the insurance agencies are essentially, while they're providing quotes, they're essentially saying we don't want to insure this sector. We'll see premiums where the premium is up to 15% of what the insured value is. So $1 million policy for $150,000 for that premium for that year. So some pretty crazy deals where then the customer has basically made a internal decision whether they're going to self-insure, fully realizing the threat and what the cost benefit ratio is to them. And some of them have just decided to self-insure and then go to spend more on cyber defense and actively do something as opposed to having a crazy premium. And
yeah.
Same client has said the client that came to mind has had $1 million policy, started many years ago, and they were paying $15,000, $20,000 for like a $3 million policy. This latest go around without any claims whatsoever. The best they could get was $1 million at $150,000 premium for the year. And they said it's just not worth it. And we would rather spend on real defenses and continue to fortify the vulnerability management process than to spend it on the insurance.
Yeah, no, absolutely. We on the cyber call last week had literally this was the conversation. We had actually Jack Kudal from Cowbell on, and it's worth watching on the cyber call. There are companies out there that are writing good policies still, believe it or not, and doing it based on telemetry and control. So I think it's a combination of things, Paul, but I do hear you loud and clear that the insurers that have taken heavy losses based on industry, ours in particular, are not writing in the same way they used to.
And I can't tell you how many customers that like, hey, we don't need this. We don't need to buy it because you got it right, Paul. It's like, no, and that's that on every tech review, every VCIO communication, it's our coverage does not cover you, and educating them to that. And some just don't want to believe it. And, we have to protect ourselves in a lot of ways, contractually, many other ways to protect ourselves. But when it happens to somebody, they're going to look to everybody to go after.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a great conversation. And again, on the cyber call last week, Dustin Bolander, who uses CyberCNS, he's involved with this insurance company that is getting involved working with MSPs called Fifth Wall. He's been basically saying it's like shooting fish in a barrel. That is one of the main ways in which he starts conversations with prospects is around cyber insurance. And he actually will bring in a broker to talk about it, and the broker validates the need for certain controls to have coverage and how that can drive down the costs. But to your side too, Paul, yeah, there's some that are just flat out, their premiums are through the roof. But the bottom line is, I see as a positive for us, finally, that we're getting noted that, for companies that are trying to get renewals, and we've seen the renewal, the cyber renewals have, basically every control in CIS IG1 listed, right? So they're helping us. I see it as. Yeah, cost per record, absolutely, is staggering these days. And by the way, Jared, if you aren't doing stuff, Paul, you do stuff in healthcare, I think. The latest MSP, latest vulnerability, if you look at what the Chinese are seemingly the first involved, they're less about ransomware in this initial thing, and they love healthcare, and so that would be a means of starting a conversation about what, if you're a healthcare provider, what China is looking to do with this exploit. All right, Shiva, we got 10 minutes left. Any other things top of mind for you?
I think nothing else, Andrew. I think the good part is that as we were on this call, we got basically the quotas and the mails have started going out. So I think a few of you, the migration process would have started. You would get an email. Okay, awesome. And Dennis, any idea when you'd want to do that call? Do you want me to help facilitate that? For those of you that are on today's call, are you okay with me throwing out like a doodle? Are you okay with me, just wanting to be sensitive to everybody's email? Can I email all of you in a group email? You want me to just BCC it? Pardon me, like I normally do in the partner call. I just want to be sensitive to if I do an email blast with those types of things.
Yeah, it was really a seed of an idea. I didn't really form it much past that point, but yeah, I think needs some sort of a platform, some sort of a sharing platform, collaboration platform is the first step to figure out how that would work. But I think.
Well, Dennis, what you could do is you want to start something. For those of you that aren't in the Slack channel yet, do you guys want to just email me and I'll make sure everybody's in, Dennis? And then Shiva, maybe we could start a Slack, a Slack channel specifically for this. And then we'll start like throwing ideas out, and then we could throw out some ideas on Lee. I'm going to just ask you to email me because this is going to get shut down in a minute. So if you don't mind, just shoot me emails, guys, and I'll make sure your Slack. I get you the Slack URL. Yeah, so we can probably do like just some ideas over Slack, but I think what we can then do is basically have like a meeting where I will be there along with some of my devs, and we can build those reports live as we describe it. Everybody can look at it and then say looks good, doesn't look good, and then we can take those reports and basically start pushing it out. So Shiva, you're going to be like one of those artists. You know what I'm saying? That like literally is on the fly. Paint me the Mona Lisa right now. And that's the fastest way. See, I keep joking about it. When people tell me the cost of discussion is more than the cost of development. So let's develop. I love it. That's brilliant, Shiva.
I suggest maybe create a Slack channel, and have people throw in ideas like, this is a report I think would be really cool. And then basically curate that for, okay, that one's impossible. or that one already exists, and just sort of pare it down to a list of, a short list of, here are reports that would be sort of, there's agreement they'd be really useful reports, and then kind of work from that.
Sounds awesome. I love it. We'll start that. Shiva, can you, if I ping you later, we'll get that Slack channel going?
Yep, I get it.
Okay, cool.
I think that from the beginning 2 years ago, the thing that has really differentiated this from every other thing I've ever been involved with has been the level of partner engagement and involvement. I've said this before. I had a feature request for Qualys, not to mention any names. Took 9 months to even get it into the queue. Another 9 months to like, oh yeah, this is a good idea. I just feel like that, the level of engagement and the rapidity of the development is the thing that's really made this different from anything else I've ever been involved with.
Thanks, Dennis.
Agree, Dennis. Agree. All right. We'll give you guys back. Agree, Dave. The team's awesome and responsive, always willing to make things better. All right. Have a fantastic week. Good selling to everybody. Looking forward to having more conversations on go-to-market, and have a fantastic day. We'll look forward to seeing you. Shiva, I don't know about next Wednesday, if we'll skip it or not. Let us know, and I'll send out an email early next week to everybody.
Sure.
All right, everybody, take care. Cheers.